The Put Me in Coach podcast. All right, it's official.
What's
Football is just about back.
Bang.
And off we go.
Let's do it. It's here.
So this is kind of one of my favorite times of the year because it's very much like the Christmas Eve of the football season where all of my fantasy teams are good as of now. All of my predictions are right as of now. And it's kind of just like, it's the hopeful time of the year. Like, I know it's not as good as Christmas morning, but sometimes imagining getting the movie quality Darth Vader mask is actually better than unwrapping it in the morning. And that's kind of what I love about like this week, right? Like the games are on Thursday. We kick off just like basically in 5 minutes. But right now we're kind of done with everything preseason, but we have one more chance to kind of put our things on the table and really like make an impact here with the picks. And it's kind of a fun like little moment. So I'm enjoying these few days of like the anticipation. It's very Christmas Eve.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm pissed that we have to wait till Thursday though. You know what I mean? Like that's I think the frustrating thing to me. And really we have to wait till Sunday. I don't really care about Eagles. You know, it's like I want to watch my team play. So we have to wait, 6 days or whatever it is.
Yeah, but Thursday's something. And
no, Thursday's something. Days. No, I'm gonna be totally locked in Thursday. I'm gonna be locked in Friday. I'm gonna be locked in Sunday. Locked in Monday. It's a big week for us.
That is a disgusting
Without further ado, let's just jump right in, man. Let's do some picks. You ready for it?
I love it. Let's do it.
I wanted to start off with kind of just getting a guy on base here. You know, when you can't hit a bucket, which in our sense would be like we can't make up our minds about some of these divisions. It's always good to get to the foul line and just hit a couple and see the ball go in the basket to kind of get in rhythm.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with what I think is kind of the easiest lock in the entire NFL next year, and that's Buffalo in the AFC East. As my division winner in the AFC East. The way I want to lay these out is kind of like give my winner and then give my challenger and kind of talk about the remaining teams. I think what's interesting about the AFC East is where I agree with consensus is Buffalo being the pick, right? I think you and I are both kind of on the same page there with that. I don't think anybody should or would refute that. However, there's kind of this agreed upon narrative that New England is going to be a 9 to 10 win team this year and win the wild card or be in the wild card game. And Drake May is going to take a big leap. These pieces are going to take a big leap, and that's going to be kind of the other team in the AFC East. That's kind of like the darling pick this year for people. And I'm not saying I don't get it, but I don't know that I am as lockstep with everybody else, because I think when I look at the AFC East, what's fascinating to me about all three of these teams besides Buffalo is I think there's actually like three similar ranges of outcomes here. So I'm going to give a couple of devil's advocate cases for a few minutes, and then we'll toss it to the next division. But New England is starting a second-year quarterback who looked very dynamic at times last year, but was undeniably inconsistent. Their O-line was one of the worst in football. Now they brought in Morgan Moses. We'll see what he has left in the tank. They drafted a rookie in Will Campbell out of LSU this year. I think Will Campbell's good. He's not Penei Sewell. He's not Joe Alt. The interior of the offensive line is horrible. Something to keep an eye on. Last year, they took two wide receivers in the second or third round, 2 high draft picks at wide receiver. Both of those guys are busts. One's not on the team anymore, and Jalen Polk is already injured and looked horrible last season. So offensively, in terms of the weapons, we're kind of relying on a 30-plus-year-old wide receiver coming off of a torn knee to be a number one in this league again and kind of turn back the clock to be who he was once upon a time. I have some questions there. Defensively, they lost Jabril Peppers. I think that matters a little bit. Kyle Duggar's already been involved in trade talks. I think Christian Gonzalez is excellent, but I think their second best player on defense is Christian Barmore, and he missed the entirety of last season, essentially. I think there's very much a world where this team looks better under Mike Vrabel. Again, I think the Josh McDaniels hire is good. That being said, I've seen Josh McDaniels be really good at one point in his career, and it was with Tom Brady. Every other step of the way, I've seen Josh McDaniels fail. I think there's a real possibility that we are getting carried away with New England, and I think part of that for me is the same case that I could make for New England is the same case I could make for the Jets, and it's the same case I could make for the Dolphins. For example, the New York Jets have a new coaching staff. They've brought in a new head coach. They've brought in a new offensive coordinator and Tanner Reichstrand, the guy that is coming from Detroit. We're in love with Ben Johnson. We don't care that the Jets got Tanner Reichstrand, who's the other guy who is kind of the brain trust in Detroit.
Yeah, created a lot of plays for us. Like huge in the play design category.
created a lot of plays in Detroit. And here's the thing, man, going into last year, we were all in love with the Jets. And we were in love with the Jets for a lot of the same reasons that we should be in love with them now. In 2023, this defense was arguably the best in football. A lot of those pieces are still there, and they've added a defensive head coach. Going into last year, we were picking Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson in the first round of fantasy drafts. Last time I checked, both of those guys are still in the building. They've gone from being, X-factor difference-making players to us kind of all forgetting that they're there. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to play good defense. And Aaron Rodgers was awful last year. So this idea that losing Aaron Rodgers is backbreaking for the New York Jets, a quarterback who, by the way, was 37th in average depth of target last year, I think it's kind of a myth. I think there's a chance that New York is considerably better this year. And before I go too deep into the weeds here, I think the same case could be made about Miami, who everyone is penciling in as a team that's going to totally unravel, totally be horrible. We saw in 2022 and 2023 the Miami Dolphins be the most dynamic, exciting, explosive offense in football. Both of those teams went to the playoffs. Last time I checked, Mike McDaniel was calling the plays when that happened. Tua Tagovailoa was the quarterback. Jalen Waddle was catching passes. Tyreek Hill was catching passes. Devon Achane was coming out of the backfield. All of those guys are still in the building. Chop Robinson was excellent last year. They brought back Minkah Fitzpatrick. And the dude from Michigan they drafted in the first round, he's an absolute stud at defensive tackle. So there's an actual possibility that New England and the Jets and the Dolphins are all within the same range of outcomes. And so would I take New England gun to the head to be my second team in this division? Probably. But I really wanted to lay that out because I think there's a bit of false narrative going on about just how locked in New England is going to be this year, going from 4 wins last year to 9 or 10 this year. I think the case is really flimsy. And I think the case is equally flimsy for the Jets and the Dolphins, but they're all three kind of the same case. So I don't know if that's too much for people, but I did want to lay that out because I think it is something.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only thing that really scares me, I agree with all that. I think Miami's O-line is going to be the downfall of Miami ultimately, I don't like the vibes over there with Tyreek Hill and what's going on, or frankly their head coach. But yeah, I mean, all the rest is true. All of it's true, even as it pertains to Miami. Those are just what ifs.
What are your thoughts on the AFC West this year? Because you've got 4 Hall of Fame coaches, you've got the defending AFC champions, and I don't think there's a single team that either you or I hate. So give me your AFC West prediction. What do you got there?
I think the obvious layup pick is the Chiefs, but I'm actually going to go in a different direction here. I love what Sean Payton is building over there in Denver. And Sean Payton is saying that he loves what he's building over there in Denver. And I just feel like this is the year where the Chiefs, we might see a little bit of a step back. Rashee Rice is suspended for the first 6 weeks. The O-line is very new, very young, very inexperienced. I love what Denver's got with that defense. And I think that offense is just going to keep humming and keep getting better and better, even building on what we saw last year. And I just feel like this is a year where they could just go jump them real fast. Maybe, and it'll be close, right? I don't think it's going to be a blowout. One team might have 11, 12 wins. The other team's going to have, 10 to 11. It's going to be a narrow division, in my opinion. But I do think that Denver, this is the year. You're coming off of a dominant Pat Surtain year. You're coming off of a year where the defense really, really, really clicked towards the end of the year. And they were great all year. Don't get it twisted. But really, it felt like towards the end of the year, they were really, really humming with gas. And they just feel like a well-oiled machine right now. There's not that there's a ton of question marks anywhere else. I think that when you look at the Chargers, losing Slater sucks. I mean, your wide receiver room is kind of Lad McConkey and a couple of what ifs. Trey Harris is supposed to be good. I think we all know that Quentin Johnson's a bust, and you've lost your left tackle for the entire season, and hopefully that's all you've lost him for. But thank God you drafted Joe Alt, but you got a rookie running back. I don't love it as far as winning a division right now. I think they're still building on the blocks. I think they're going to be really good in a couple of years, but I don't think the time is now. And as we've touched on with Vegas, I think that so much of this is just stopping the bleeding and being a competitive team right now. I think Pete Carroll's come in to kind of, level everything out and say, all right, we're done being a joke. We're actually going to be a frisky team. We're going to be a tough team. We're going to be a tough out. But I don't see them being better than Kansas City or Denver because they're, much like the Chargers kind of now even starting their process where you're bringing in a vet. You've got, year 2 Brock Bowers. You have Ashton Genty coming in. You have, Crosby, and you have Tyree Wilson, Max Crosby. The defense, obviously you lost Christian Wilkins because he's a weirdo in the locker room. I don't love the secondary. I don't love the linebackers. I don't, they're not there yet, but they are going to be a frustrating team. They're going to win some games they're not supposed to win. But for all my money this year, I mean, I can't go through and just pick all the same guys from last year, right? That just doesn't happen. So somebody's got to regress. Somebody's got to fall off. And I just feel like Kansas City has run that division for the last 7-8 years. And Denver is now knocking on the door saying, hey, we've arrived. And that defense is going to get them to where they need to be.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. And I think just to give you a little bit more kind of credence on your take, I think the Rashee Rice suspension matters, and I know that people don't really feel like it does because this team was in the Super Bowl last year without him, but offensively, I think they really needed to get that piece back. I think Xavier Worthy's a 2. I don't think he's a 1. And from what I've seen from Patrick Mahomes offensively the last couple of years, I think they really needed to get that bona fide receiver back in the lineup to start the season and get that groove going. And 6 games is some time to let, Denver, who I think frankly has a softer schedule than Kansas City, kind of build some momentum and get their sea legs with those pieces.
Well, and they also, I believe, if correct me if I'm wrong, because you might actually know, but didn't Kansas City win like 11 one-score games last year?
Yeah, they won almost every game by 1 score.
That doesn't translate season to season. You know what I mean? Like that's one of those things like the Vikings a few years ago when they won 14 games and then got blown out by Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, right? I mean, they won like 14 games and the next year I don't even think they made the playoffs. So not saying that the Kansas City's going to fall off like that. It's still Andy Reid. It's still Patrick Mahomes. It's still Travis Kelce, but I like them for a step back year this year.
Yeah, and I still think a step back year is like in the playoffs, and they're going to be really
100%.
good. I think
it's probably in the Super Bowl, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but, I think we're splitting the game here. I think, and I'm with you. Yeah. I think that's a fun pick, and you and I are really high on Denver, so I love rocking with it. Can I take us to the other division here that I think is like razor thin, and that might be a one game decider? I think the Houston Texans in the AFC South are the best team, in my opinion, in the AFC South. I think that anytime that you've got DeMeco Ryans there, who's built a really awesome culture, those edges with Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, I think you've got one of the best corners in football in Stingley. And frankly, I trust CJ Stroud. I really do. I think he's a great player. That being said, I'm taking the Jaguars by a game.
Let's go.
I'm putting my money where my mouth is, man. Look, I
love it.
I think it's going to be razor thin. I don't think Houston is going to be a bad football team. I think there's no chance of that. I just have such truly tremendous concerns about that offensive line in Houston. It's real for me. I think their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. I think CJ is going to keep them in a lot of games. I'm just really concerned about their running game with Joe Mixon. I'm willing to say I think he's going to miss most of the year. I think he's probably not going to play most of the season this year with that injury. And that leaves me with the ghost of Nick Chubb. It leaves me with Woody Marks and Dameon Pierce to run the football behind a bad offensive line. I'll believe it when I see it. They fired Bobby Slowick last year because of the protection issues. I don't think that bringing in Nick Caley is going to solve that problem. I think they'll be able to win some games in the short passing game. I think Nico Collins is going to be great this year. I love their team around the offensive line. It's too concerning for me. And when I look at Jacksonville, what Brian Thomas Jr. did last year was nothing short of incredible given the quarterback play. I don't think we've seen the best from Trevor Lawrence yet. I'm still a believer. I have my doubts now, but it's still there for me. I think drafting Travis Hunter gives this offense genuine dynamic explosion outside of just one guy. And look, their offensive line is nothing to write home about either, and neither is their D-line, but they do, like Houston does, have a legitimate pass rush with Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. I'm betting on Liam Cohen coming in and bringing offense to this team and bringing it fast enough that it's a very close division race, but they just edge them out narrowly. And it's a bold take, but I'm willing to go there because I really do think this team is going to have a big flip this year. And as it pertains to Indianapolis, I think the roster is really good, man. I understand people who are, putting their hat in the ring for Indianapolis. I think Shane Steichen is awesome. I actually have a family in-law who actually coaches for the Indianapolis Colts, which is kind of crazy, but I wish that I could go Indy. I think Jonathan Taylor's great. Their O-line kind of always delivers. They have good pieces. I just don't believe in Daniel Jones. I don't. I'm sorry. And I can't get behind Daniel Jones winning the division. I think that team's still going to win 8 games, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And in terms of Tennessee, I've talked about it, ad nauseum. I'm a believer in Cam Ward. I like the investment in the O-line. I don't think Callahan's the guy. I just don't. And I think you did the right thing by firing Carthon a couple, just recently, bringing in a new GM. That's a start. You've got the wrong head coach. I'm telling you, he's not the guy. And I just don't think Tennessee has a shot to surprise people the way the Commanders did. I just don't think they do. I think we'll see improvements from what we saw last year, but that's a really low bar. They were the worst team in the league. So that's my stance. That's kind of my bold take out of my division predictions. And I know people aren't going to like it, but again, it's not a Houston fade entirely. I think they'll be good. I just think Jacksonville is going to eke one extra game out that they weren't supposed to. And we're going to go, wait a minute, Jacksonville won it in week 17. And it's going to be like, yeah. Just my bold take. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with
AFC North, baby. I think let's not waste too much time here. I think it's Baltimore. I think Baltimore is a top 3 roster in the entire NFL. I would put them right up there with in my eyes, Philly and Detroit as just head to toe juggernaut rosters and no excuses not to get it done this year. I think you have the best quarterback in the NFL. We talked about that in a video recently. I think the defense is loaded. I think the offense is loaded enough. The wide receiving core is a little iffy, but Zay Flowers is a good player. If you can get a little bit out of DeAndre Hopkins, there'll be a decent core. Mark Andrews, obviously one of the premier tight ends in this league, and Derrick Henry is gonna Derrick Henry. I mean, he Father Time is cannot catch him. I just see this as the year that they have to get it done, because I look around this division. I think that Cincinnati might have, the worst defense in the entire league. Their offensive line is still nothing to write home about. And I think asking Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase to go out there and replicate what they did last year that resulted in no playoff berth is a really tall order to ask them to go do that again. You're talking MVP caliber numbers. You're talking Triple Crown winner. Go do it again. Hopefully you can get one more win and make the playoffs this time. I just don't think you do that back-to-back years. I mean, we just rarely see it. But to be fair to Cincinnati, if anybody can do it, it's those two. But I look at Pittsburgh over there and I think, all right, Aaron Rodgers swan song, Mike Tomlin defense, a good enough offense. TJ Watt got his big contract. You got Cam Hayward in there. You got Patrick Queen in there. You bring in Jalen Ramsey. You bring in Darius Slay. It's an older team. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely an older team, but can they put together one more season? You know what I mean? What's the drop off between Aaron Rodgers and Russ? Is there any? That was a 10-win team last year. That was a playoff team last year. I think their defense got better, and I think their offense is at least the same. And depending on what they want to run, I think their tight ends and their wide receiver one is probably a little better. Just a smidge, not by much. I like George Pickens. I like DK Metcalf. I don't love either of them, but I think for what Aaron Rodgers does, I think DK is a little bit better at what Aaron likes to throw. Call me wrong there. I don't know. I like the vibe between DK and Aaron better than I like the vibe between Aaron and George Pickens potentially. And then I think Roman Wilson's going to eat. I don't know. I just do. I think Roman Wilson across the middle is just going to become quietly a really good receiver just because it's the Steelers and that's what they always do with their middle to late round receivers. They always just end up being cold. And we watched Roman Wilson at Michigan for many years and he's a gamer, man. He's a complete gamer. So if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be a little bit of a weapon. And I like Pittsburgh in second. I like Pittsburgh to be fighting for a wild card spot. I think this is the year the Bengals truly implode, and you might see a trade request come down the pipeline, and then the Browns are terrible. So I'm not even going to spend any time on them. They're not good.
Thank God you didn't forget to mention the Browns. I was going to check you on that. It's really important that we kind of include them in the conversation. I think they're definitely no, I can't even keep a straight face.
Really good defense, amazing defense. That defense, their defense is going to give people fits, but their offense is just there's nothing there. Who's your running back? Who's your quarterback?
But now he's dead.
Yeah, literally.
It's over for those boys. No, I think we see that division in a really similar light with Baltimore being atop the list, like pretty soundly, pretty safely. It feels very Buffalo to me, where it's just sort of like those teams have entered the era now of Super Bowl or bust. So we're not really talking about division stuff. I think the only disagreement we really have is flipping Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. I believe in Burrow and in Chase and Higgins and those guys to dial up.
Like I said, if anybody could do it, it's them. If anybody could do it, it's them.
Yeah,
it would not shock me.
I'm just not a believer in the Rodgers Pittsburgh thing. I'm just not.
No,
and
that's super fair.
I'm willing to be wrong.
To be totally fair, I'm not really either. I just more believe in the defense, and I think that Cincy defense is going to be just abysmal.
I think you're probably right about that.
I think we saw a little bit of that in the preseason game against Washington, and it was bad. I mean, those were ones out there, and they looked rough. But Hendrickson's back. Stewart finally signed his deal, so the pass rush could be all right. And could that win them one more game if Burrow and Chase go out there and replicate last year, and you're 10-7 and you win or you get in the wild card? Yeah, I mean that's possible.
That is a disgusting act.
That's it. I think we got it, man. That is our AFC predictions for this year. Division winners, division conversations, and can't wait to see how this backfires tremendously in our faces in about 2 weeks' time. Guys, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you have different picks, because it's valid if you do. We're taking some underdogs this year. I think that's fun. So
got to.
Peace out.
Straight up.